The letter arrived on a Thursday in February 1898, smudged with dirt and folded so many times the creases had worn thin. And Zara Bennett held it in trembling hands while standing in the doorway of the Boston tenement she could no longer afford, knowing that accepting a stranger's proposal 2,000 miles away might be her only chance at survival. She read Isaac Thornton's careful handwriting 3 times, searching for cruelty between the lines, but found only simple honesty about his ranch outside Cheyenne, Wyoming, his need for a wife, and his promise that he would treat her with respect. The photograph he included showed a tall man with serious eyes and a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, standing beside a modest wooden house with mountains in the distance. Zara studied that face for hours, wondering if those eyes held kindness or hardness, if those hands would be gentle or rough, if she was making the gravest mistake of her 22 years, or grasping the only lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. Her father had died 6 months earlier, crushed beneath a warehouse collapse that left her mother bedridden with grief that turned her lungs to stone. Zara buried her mother on a cold January morning with the last of their savings, stood alone at the graveside because her brother had disappeared west 3 years prior, and returned to their single room to find an eviction notice nailed to the door. She had sewn shirts in a factory for pennies that barely covered bread, scrubbed floors in houses where women looked through her like she was glass, and finally placed an advertisement in the matrimonial news with shaking hands and burning cheeks. Isaac Thornton's response came 2 weeks later, along with a train ticket and $40 for travel expenses. Now she stood on the platform at Cheyenne's railway station on a blustery March afternoon, her carpetbag clutching everything she owned, scanning the crowd for a man she had seen only in a photograph. The wind cut through her thin coat and she shivered, pulling her shawl tighter, her eyes fixed on the worn boards beneath her boots. She could not lift her gaze, could not meet the eyes of strangers who might see the desperation written across her face, the shame of being a woman so alone that she had sold herself to a stranger for the price of a train ticket and 3 meals a day. Miss Bennett. The voice was deep, careful, and came from directly in front of her. Zara's breath caught. She stared at the dusty tips of brown leather boots, at denim trousers worn soft with work, at hands that hung loose at his sides with calluses visible even from her downcast perspective. She managed a nod but could not force her eyes higher than his belt buckle. "I'm Isaac Thornton." He paused and she heard him shift his weight. "I hope your journey was not too difficult." "It was fine, thank you." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. She felt heat crawling up her neck, shame at her own weakness, but she could not make herself look up, could not bear to see disappointment or disgust in his face when he realized what a pathetic creature he had purchased. The silence stretched between them like a rope pulled taut. Zara clutched her carpetbag tighter, wishing the platform would open and swallow her whole. "Well," Isaac said finally, his tone gentler than she expected, "my wagon's just over here. Let me take your bag." His hand reached down and carefully took the carpetbag from her grip. He did not touch her, did not force anything, just lifted the bag and turned away. "Follow me when you are ready." Zara blinked at his retreating back, surprised. She had expected demands, irritation, perhaps anger at her rudeness. Instead, he simply walked toward a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 patient horses, set her bag in the back, and waited beside the wheel with his gaze turned toward the mountains in the distance. She forced her feet to move, 1 step and then another, until she stood beside the wagon. Isaac gestured to the seat. "I will help you up if you like, or there's a step bar there." "I can manage." She found the bar with her foot and climbed up, arranging her skirts, her eyes still fixed downward. Isaac walked around to the other side and climbed up beside her, taking the reins with capable hands. The wagon rolled forward, and Zara watched the town pass by in fragments, seeing only what her downcast eyes allowed. Boots scuffed boardwalks, horse droppings in the street, the hem of a woman's skirt as they passed. She sensed Isaac glancing at her occasionally, but he did not speak, did not demand conversation or explanation. The silence should have been uncomfortable, but instead felt oddly peaceful, like he was giving her space to breathe. They left Cheyenne behind and followed a rutted road into rolling grassland that stretched toward distant mountains still capped with snow. The wind carried the smell of sage and earth, and despite everything, Zara felt something in her chest loosen slightly. The landscape was so vast, so empty of judgment that some of her shame began to lift like morning fog. "The ranch is about an hour from town," Isaac said eventually. "It is not much, but the house is solid and the land is good. I run cattle, about 200 head right now. I have a hired man, Tom, who lives in the bunkhouse. He is good people, a bit rough around the edges but respectful. He knows you are coming and will keep his distance until you are comfortable." Zara nodded, still watching her own hands twisted in her lap. "I want you to know," Isaac continued, his voice steady and honest, "that I will not press you for anything you are not ready to give. We will have a proper wedding tomorrow in town with the preacher, but after that, the house has 2 bedrooms. You may have your own space for as long as you need it. I am looking for a partner, Miss Bennett, not a servant or a prisoner. I hope in time we might build something good together, but I understand you do not know me yet. I can wait." The words hit Zara like a bucket of cold water, shocking in their simple decency. She had braced herself for demands, for a man who would expect his payment immediately. Instead, Isaac Thornton offered patience. Her throat tightened with unexpected emotion and she blinked rapidly, willing away tears. "Thank you," she managed, her voice rough. "That is kind." "It is just decent," Isaac replied. "You took a considerable risk coming out here. The least I can do is prove myself worthy of that trust." They fell back into silence, but it felt different now, warmer somehow. Zara risked a glance upward, just enough to see the landscape rolling past, the mountains growing larger against an enormous sky. She did not look at Isaac, not yet, but the knot in her chest loosened another fraction. The ranch appeared as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks. A 2-story house painted white with a wide porch, a red barn with a corral beside it, a smaller bunkhouse, and several outbuildings scattered across cleared land. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, dark shapes against golden grass. It was modest but well kept, the kind of place built by hard work and careful hands. Isaac pulled the wagon up in front of the house and set the brake. "Welcome home, Miss Bennett. Home." The word felt foreign and fragile in her ears. Zara climbed down before Isaac could offer help, still keeping her eyes averted, and stood awkwardly beside the wagon. The door to the bunkhouse opened and a grizzled man in his 50s emerged, his weathered face breaking into a gap-toothed smile. "Boss, you are back. This must be the lady." "Miss Bennett, this is Tom Granger. Tom, Miss Zara Bennett. Pleased to meet you, miss." Tom tipped his hat but kept a respectful distance. "I hope you will be happy here." Zara nodded, her eyes on Tom's boots. "Thank you." She heard Tom and Isaac exchange glances, felt their concern like a weight in the air, but neither man commented on her strange behavior. Isaac retrieved her carpet bag and gestured toward the house. "Let me show you inside." The house was simple but clean, with a large front room containing a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a cast iron stove, and stairs leading to the second floor. Isaac set her bag down and pointed to the staircase. "There are 2 bedrooms upstairs." I have been using the one on the left, so the right one is yours. I put fresh linens on the bed yesterday and cleared space in the wardrobe. There is water in the pitcher if you want to wash up, and I will start supper in about an hour. Do you need anything else?" Zara shook her head, still staring at the floorboards. "No, thank you. All right then. I will be outside tending the horses if you need me." He paused at the door, his hand on the frame. "Miss Bennett, I meant what I said earlier. Take all the time you need. There is no rush for anything." He left before she could respond, his boots heavy on the porch steps. Zara stood alone in the front room of this strange house that was supposed to become her home, surrounded by the belongings of a man she did not know, and finally allowed the tears to come. They streamed down her face silently while she stood frozen in place, crying for her parents, for her lost brother, for the girl she had been before poverty and desperation had stripped away her dignity. When the tears finally stopped, she felt hollowed out but also somehow cleaner. She picked up her carpetbag and climbed the stairs to the bedroom on the right. It was a pleasant room with a window overlooking the pastures, a sturdy bed covered in a blue quilt, a wardrobe, a small table with a mirror and washing basin. Someone had placed wildflowers in a jar on the table. Isaac, she realized. He had picked wildflowers for a woman he had never met. That small kindness nearly undid her again. Zara sank onto the edge of the bed and buried her face in her hands, struggling to understand this strange situation she had entered. She had expected harshness and found gentleness. She had braced for demands and received patience. Isaac Thornton was not what she had feared, but that somehow made everything more complicated. She could have endured cruelty because it was familiar, because she knew how to harden herself against it. Kindness left her defenseless. A knock on the doorframe downstairs made her jump. "Miss Bennett," Isaac's voice drifted up. "Supper is ready if you are hungry." Zara washed her face quickly in the basin, tied her hair back with trembling fingers, and descended the stairs. Isaac had set the table with 2 plates of beef stew and fresh bread, coffee steaming in tin cups. He stood by the stove, waiting. "Please sit." He gestured to one of the chairs and took the other, deliberately positioning himself so she did not have to look directly at him across the table. They ate in silence for several minutes. The stew was good, hearty and well seasoned, and Zara realized she had barely eaten on the long train journey. She focused on her plate, aware of Isaac eating steadily beside her, his movements economical and calm. "I should tell you about tomorrow," Isaac said eventually. "We will ride into town in the morning to see Reverend Mitchell. He knows we are coming. The ceremony will be simple, and we will need 2 witnesses. Tom will come, and probably Mrs. Henderson from the general store. She is a kind woman, been helpful to me since I settled here 3 years ago. After the ceremony, I thought we could get supplies and be back before dark, unless you would prefer something different." Zara shook her head, her eyes on her stew. "That sounds fine." "You can change your mind," Isaac said quietly. "If you have doubts, if you want to take more time, I will not hold you to anything. I can arrange for you to stay at the boarding house in town if you prefer, give you time to decide." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. Zara gripped her spoon tighter. "I gave my word. I will marry you tomorrow." She heard Isaac let out a slow breath. "All right, but the offer stands if you change your mind." They finished eating and Zara insisted on washing the dishes despite Isaac's protests. It gave her something to do with her hands, a familiar task that did not require meeting anyone's eyes. Isaac banked the fire and checked the doors, then paused at the base of the stairs. "Good night, Miss Bennett. Sleep well." "Good night, Mr. Thornton." Zara lay awake for hours that night in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the house settle around her and the distant sounds of cattle and night birds. She thought about the wedding tomorrow, about legally binding herself to a stranger, about all the ways this could still go wrong. But she also thought about Isaac's steady voice and careful words, about the wildflowers on the table, about the way he had given her space to breathe. Maybe, she thought as sleep finally claimed her, maybe this would not be the disaster she had feared. Morning arrived cold and clear. Zara dressed in her best dress, a dark blue wool that had been her mother's, and braided her hair into a crown around her head. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a pale woman with dark circles under her eyes, but there was nothing to be done about that. She descended the stairs to find Isaac already dressed in clean trousers and a pressed shirt, his hair still damp from washing. "Good morning," he said. "There is coffee and biscuits on the table. We should leave in about 30 minutes if that suits you." They ate a quiet breakfast and then climbed into the wagon, Tom joining them with his own horse tied behind. The ride to Cheyenne felt faster than yesterday, perhaps because Zara knew what awaited at the end. The town was busier on a Saturday morning, people moving along the boardwalks, wagons rattling past. Isaac guided them to a small white church at the end of the main street. Reverend Mitchell was a portly man with kind eyes and a booming voice that seemed too large for his small frame. He greeted them warmly and ushered them into the simple chapel. Mrs. Henderson arrived moments later, a sturdy woman in her 40s with flour still dusting her apron. "Did not want to miss this," she said cheerfully, squeezing Zara's hand. "Isaac is good people. You are getting yourself a fine man." The ceremony was brief and practical. Reverend Mitchell read from his worn Bible while Zara stood beside Isaac, her eyes fixed on the Reverend's shoes. When it came time for vows, Isaac's voice was steady and clear. Zara's responses came out barely above a whisper, but she managed to speak the words that bound her life to his. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Mitchell announced. Zara's breath froze. She had not thought this far ahead, had not prepared for this moment. Panic fluttered in her chest. Isaac leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away, and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Hello, Mrs. Thornton," he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. The relief that flooded through her nearly buckled her knees. She nodded, unable to speak, and Isaac stepped back to shake the Reverend's hand. They signed the marriage certificate, accepted congratulations from Tom and Mrs. Henderson, and walked back into the bright morning as husband and wife. Isaac helped Zara into the wagon with a hand under her elbow, the first time he had touched her beyond that brief kiss, and even that contact was careful and respectful. They stopped at the general store where Isaac bought supplies, deferring to Zara's judgment on household items despite her protests that she did not know his preferences. "They are your preferences too now," he said simply. "Pick what you like." The return journey felt different. Zara was married now, legally bound to this quiet man beside her. The reality of it settled over her like a heavy blanket. Back at the ranch, Isaac carried the supplies inside while Tom unhitched the horses. "I need to ride out and check the herd," Isaac said as he set the last sack of flour on the counter. "A few cows are due to calve any day, and I want to make sure they are all right. I will be back before dark. Will you be comfortable here alone?" Zara nodded, still studying the floorboards. "Yes. There is a rifle by the door if you need it, though I do not expect any trouble. Help yourself to anything in the house." He paused, and she sensed him searching for more words. "I am glad you are here, Zara. I hope you will come to feel the same." He left before she could respond, and Zara spent the afternoon unpacking supplies and exploring the house more thoroughly. It was clear a bachelor had lived here, the furnishings practical and sparse, but everything was clean and well maintained. She found a small library of books in the front room, titles ranging from agricultural guides to novels by Dickens and Twain. She had not expected a cowboy to be a reader. That evening, Isaac returned as the sun set, his face tired but satisfied. "All the cows are fine. 2 new calves, both healthy." They ate supper together, another quiet meal where Isaac respected her silence and did not push for conversation. Afterward, he read by the fire while Zara worked on mending a torn shirt she had found in the laundry basket. The domestic scene felt surreal, like she was play-acting at being a wife rather than actually living it. Days turned into weeks, and a strange routine developed. Isaac woke before dawn and worked the ranch with Tom, coming in for breakfast that Zara had learned to prepare the way he liked, though he always insisted everything was fine regardless of how it turned out. They spoke little, but the silences felt comfortable rather than tense. Isaac never demanded anything from her, never pushed into her space, never made her feel like a possession he had purchased. At night, they retreated to their separate rooms. Zara would lie awake listening to the house settle, to Isaac's quiet movements in the other bedroom, and wonder how long this strange half-marriage could continue. She was grateful for his patience but also confused by it. What did he want from her? When would his kindness run out? Spring deepened into early summer, and the work on the ranch intensified. Zara began helping with the garden, coaxing vegetables from the rich soil, and found unexpected pleasure in the physical labor. She still could not make herself meet Isaac's eyes, still kept her gaze downcast whenever they spoke, but she began to relax incrementally, to believe that perhaps he truly meant what he said about not pressing her. One evening in late May, a violent thunderstorm rolled in from the mountains. Rain hammered the roof and lightning split the sky, thunder shaking the windows. Zara sat in the front room trying to read by lamplight, but each thunderclap made her jump. She had never liked storms, had spent her childhood hiding under blankets while her father told her stories to distract her from the noise. Isaac came down from his room in his nightshirt and trousers, his hair tousled. "Are you all right?" "I am fine." But her voice shook, and another crack of thunder made her flinch. Without a word, Isaac sat in the other chair by the fire and picked up his own book. He did not speak, did not acknowledge her fear, just sat reading companionably while the storm raged outside. His quiet presence was steadying, a reminder that she was not alone. They sat together until the storm passed and the rain gentled into a steady patter. "Thank you," Zara whispered. "Anytime." Isaac stood and paused beside her chair. "Sleep well, Zara." Something shifted that night. Zara began to see Isaac differently, not as the stranger who had bought her like livestock, but as a man who was trying his best to be kind in a world that rarely rewarded kindness. She noticed small things, how he always made sure she had the comfortable chair, how he left the best pieces of meat on her plate, how he worked himself to exhaustion every day to keep the ranch running. In June, a crisis struck. Tom's horse threw him while chasing a spooked calf, and he broke his leg badly. Isaac and Zara rushed him to the doctor in Cheyenne, who set the bone but declared Tom would need at least 6 weeks to heal. The injury left Isaac short-handed during the busiest season, and Zara saw the worry etched in his face even though he tried to hide it. "I can help," she said quietly as they drove back to the ranch. Isaac glanced at her in surprise. "You do not have to do that. Ranch work is hard." "I am not afraid of hard work. Show me what needs doing and I will do it." So Zara learned to ride, first on the gentlest mare Isaac owned, then with increasing confidence as her skills improved. She learned to mend fences, to check cattle for injury or illness, to help with the endless physical labor of keeping a ranch running. Her hands blistered and then calloused. Her muscles ached. She fell asleep exhausted every night and woke before dawn to do it all again. But something unexpected happened during those long days working beside Isaac. She began to see the man behind the careful courtesy. She saw his patience with a skittish colt, his gentleness with newborn calves, his quiet competence handling problems that would have overwhelmed a lesser man. She saw how he treated every animal with respect, how he spoke to Tom as an equal despite being his employer, how he never complained despite working twice as hard to compensate for Tom's absence. One sweltering afternoon in July, they stopped to water the horses at a creek that cut through the property. Zara knelt beside the water and splashed her face, grateful for the coolness. When she looked up, still on her knees at the water's edge, she found herself staring directly at Isaac's dusty boots. Her old instinct was to look away immediately, to drop her gaze and retreat into safety. But something made her pause. Slowly, heart pounding, Zara lifted her eyes. Past his boots, past his legs, past his belt and chest, until finally she met Isaac Thornton's gaze for the first time since the day he had picked her up at the train station. His eyes were brown, she discovered, warm brown like good earth, and they were looking at her with such naked hope and careful restraint that it stole her breath. She saw everything in that gaze, his loneliness, his kindness, his patience, his growing affection, his fear of pushing too hard. She saw a good man who had waited 4 months for her to feel safe enough to truly look at him. "Hello," Isaac said softly, his voice rough with emotion. "Hello," Zara whispered back and felt tears streaming down her face. Isaac dropped to his knees beside her, never breaking eye contact. "Are you all right?" She nodded, unable to speak, overwhelmed by the simple act of meeting his eyes. It felt like stepping into sunlight after months in shadow, like breaking through water after nearly drowning. She had been so afraid of what she might see in his face, but she had been wrong. There was no cruelty here, no hardness, only kindness and hope and something that looked very much like love. "I am sorry," she managed finally. "I am sorry it took me so long. Do not apologize." Isaac reached out slowly and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "You have nothing to apologize for. I would have waited years if that was what you needed." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why have you been so patient? What do you want from me?" Isaac smiled, and she realized it was the first real smile she had seen on his face. It transformed him, made him almost handsome. "I want what everyone wants, I suppose. I want a partner, someone to share this life with, to build something good with. I want laughter at the breakfast table and someone to talk to at the end of the day. I want to know you are happy and safe. And someday, if you are willing, I would like a family." He paused, his thumb still resting against her cheek. "But mostly, Zara, I want you to choose to be here, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to stay. I will not settle for anything less than that, which means I have to give you the time and space to decide what you want." Zara stared at him, at this extraordinary man who had somehow seen her as more than a desperate mail-order bride. "I was so afraid," she confessed. "I thought you would be cruel, or that you would use me and discard me. I thought I was selling myself just to survive. And now I think I might be the luckiest woman in Wyoming." She said it shyly but held his gaze, refusing to look away even though her heart hammered against her ribs. Isaac's smile widened. "May I kiss you? A real kiss this time, not just your forehead." Zara's breath caught, but she nodded. Isaac leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind, and pressed his lips to hers. It was gentle and sweet and tasted like creek water and dust and promise. When he pulled back, Zara surprised herself by leaning forward and kissing him again, longer this time, pouring 4 months of gratitude and growing affection into the contact. They knelt beside the creek kissing until the horses stamped impatiently, reminding them of the work still to be done. Isaac helped Zara to her feet, and this time when she took his hand, she looked directly into his eyes and smiled. The ride back to the ranch house felt different. Zara kept glancing at Isaac, memorizing his profile, the way he sat his horse, the capable strength in his shoulders. He caught her looking several times and grinned, looking younger and happier than she had ever seen him. That evening, they sat on the porch after supper watching the sun set behind the mountains. Isaac's hand found hers on the bench between them, their fingers intertwining. Zara rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture that would have been impossible just days before. "Tell me about yourself," Isaac said. "I want to know everything. Your favorite color, what books you like, what your childhood was like, all of it." So Zara talked, hesitantly at first and then with increasing confidence, telling him about growing up in Boston, about her parents and her lost brother, about the factory work and the loneliness and the fear that had driven her to answer his advertisement. Isaac listened without interrupting, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. When she finished, he shared his own story. He had grown up on a farm in Ohio, the youngest of 5 children. When his parents died within a year of each other, the farm went to his oldest brother and Isaac headed west with his small inheritance to build his own life. He had worked as a ranch hand for 2 years, learning everything he could before purchasing this land and starting from nothing. He was 28 now, and until Zara arrived, he had been completely alone except for Tom. "Why a mail-order bride?" Zara asked. "You could have courted someone local." Isaac shrugged. "There are not many unmarried women in Cheyenne, and the few there are have better prospects than a struggling rancher. Besides, I think perhaps I wanted someone who understood loneliness and second chances, someone who was building a new life just like me. You took a risk." "I could have been awful, so could I." He squeezed her hand. "But I had a good feeling about your letter. You were honest and direct, no false promises or expectations. I appreciated that." As darkness fell, Isaac walked Zara upstairs, but this time he paused outside her bedroom door. "Would you like company tonight? Just to talk and be together. Nothing more unless you want it." Zara's pulse quickened, but she found herself nodding. They lay together on top of the covers, fully clothed, talking late into the night about everything and nothing. Isaac told her about his plans for the ranch, his hope to expand the herd and maybe add horses. Zara confessed her dream of having a real garden, maybe even some chickens. They laughed over shared frustrations and discovered unexpected commonalities. Eventually, talk faded into comfortable silence, and Zara drifted to sleep with Isaac's arm around her shoulders and his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. She woke briefly in the deep night to find him still there, still holding her, and felt safe in a way she had not since her parents died. Their relationship deepened quickly after that breakthrough by the creek. Zara moved her things into Isaac's room without discussion, and they became husband and wife in truth as well as law. Their physical intimacy was tentative at first, Isaac always careful and patient, but Zara discovered unexpected passion in herself and a husband who matched it with tenderness. Tom recovered and returned to work, whistling cheerfully and pretending not to notice the obvious change in the household. "About time," he muttered to Isaac one morning when he thought Zara could not hear. "The two of you were tiptoeing around each other like nervous cats." Summer blazed into autumn and the ranch thrived. They sold cattle at good prices, and Isaac surprised Zara with a trip to Denver in September, their first real honeymoon. They stayed in a proper hotel, ate in restaurants, and wandered the bustling streets hand in hand. Zara bought fabric for new dresses, and Isaac purchased tools and supplies for the ranch. But mostly, They just enjoyed being together away from the endless demands of ranch life. On their last night in Denver, they sat in a fancy restaurant with white tablecloths and crystal glasses, and Isaac reached across the table to take her hand. "I love you, Zara Thornton. I think I started falling in love with you the day you stepped off that train, too frightened to look at me but brave enough to be there anyway." Zara's eyes filled with happy tears. "I love you too. I did not think I could feel this way, did not think I deserved it, but you showed me I was wrong." They returned to the ranch renewed and happy, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Winter came early and hard that year, with blizzards that buried the ranch under feet of snow. It was brutal work keeping the cattle alive, breaking ice on water troughs, hauling feed through drifts that reached the horses' bellies. But Zara and Isaac faced it together, collapsing exhausted into bed each night and waking to do it all again. In February, on their first wedding anniversary, Zara told Isaac she was pregnant. He picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, whooping with joy, then immediately set her down and fussed over whether she should be lifting anything or working too hard. Zara laughed and swatted his concerns away, insisting she was perfectly healthy and capable of normal work. Their son was born in October of 1899, during the first snowfall of the season. Isaac paced the downstairs while the doctor and Mrs. Henderson attended Zara upstairs, Tom trying unsuccessfully to distract him with card games. When the baby's cry finally echoed through the house, Isaac took the stairs 3 at a time. Zara lay exhausted but glowing in their bed, holding a squirming bundle wrapped in blankets. "Meet your son," she said softly. Isaac knelt beside the bed and carefully took the baby, his large hands impossibly gentle cradling the tiny body. "Hello, little one, I am your father." He looked at Zara with wonder in his eyes. "He is perfect. You are perfect. What should we name him?" They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but never settled on anything. Now, looking at her husband holding their child with such tenderness, Zara knew. "James, after your father." Isaac's eyes went bright with unshed tears. "James Thornton, it is a good, strong name." He handed the baby back to Zara and kissed her forehead. "Thank you. For him, for everything, for choosing to stay and build this life with me." "I never had a choice," Zara said, smiling. "Not really. My heart chose you the moment you gave me the space to breathe." James proved to be a healthy baby with strong lungs and his father's serious eyes. Isaac was a devoted father, taking the baby on ranch rounds in a sling, talking to him constantly about the cattle and horses and land. Zara watched them together and felt her heart nearly burst with happiness. A year later, their daughter arrived, a tiny thing with her mother's dark hair and a temperament as fierce as a Wyoming wind. They named her Caroline, and she immediately wrapped both her father and brother around her small fingers. Tom declared himself honorary grandfather and spent his evenings whittling toys for the children. In the spring of 1902, a letter arrived from Boston. Zara's brother Daniel had finally resurfaced, working as a freight manager in Seattle. He had tracked her down through old contacts and wrote asking if she was well, if she had survived, if she could ever forgive him for disappearing. Zara cried over that letter, but they were not entirely sad tears. She wrote back immediately, telling him about Isaac and the ranch and the children, about the life she had built from desperation, and found unexpected joy within. Daniel's response came 2 months later with a photograph of himself and his wife, along with a promise to visit the following summer. Zara added the photograph to the small collection on the mantel beside her wedding picture and the portraits of James and Caroline. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Isaac's hard work and careful management paid off, and they expanded their holdings, purchasing adjacent land when it became available. They hired additional hands and built a second bunkhouse. Zara's garden became the envy of the county. Producing vegetables, they sold in town along with fresh eggs from her thriving chicken coop. In quiet moments, usually late at night when the children were asleep, Isaac and Zara would sit together on the porch as they had that first evening after she finally met his eyes. They would hold hands and watch the stars wheel overhead and marvel at the strange path that had brought them together. "Do you ever regret answering my advertisement?" Isaac asked one such night in the summer of 1903. Zara turned to look at him, meeting his eyes with the easy confidence of a woman deeply loved. "Never, not for a single moment. You gave me a home when I had none, patience when I needed it most, and love I did not think I deserved. You are the best man I have ever known, Isaac Thornton. I am just a cowboy who got luckier than he had any right to be." Isaac pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. "You turned a house into a home and gave me a family. Everything good in my life comes from you." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch, to the soft lowing of cattle and the whisper of wind through grass. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully. Beyond the porch, the land they had built together stretched away toward distant mountains. It was not the life Zara had imagined for herself during those desperate days in Boston, but it was so much better than anything she could have dreamed. Years continued to pass in the rhythm of ranch life, marked by changing seasons and growing children. James grew tall and serious like his father, taking to ranch work with natural skill. Caroline proved to be as fearless as she was stubborn, riding almost before she could walk. In 1905, another son arrived, and they named him Thomas after their loyal friend who had been part of their family from the beginning. Tom himself was graying now, but still worked the ranch with the same steady dedication. He had watched Isaac and Zara's family grow with fierce pride, and the children considered him as much a grandfather as if he shared their blood. In the spring of 1907, Daniel finally made his promised visit with his wife and their 2 young daughters. The reunion between brother and sister was tearful and joyful, years of separation melting away in a fierce embrace. Daniel stayed for 2 weeks, helping with ranch work and getting to know the family Zara had built. Before he left, he pulled Isaac aside. "Thank you for taking care of my sister," Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "I failed her when our parents died. I ran west and left her to face everything alone. I will carry that shame forever." Isaac shook his hand firmly. "She does not need taking care of, not the way you mean. Zara is the strongest person I know. But I am honored she chose to share her life with me, and I will spend the rest of my days proving worthy of that choice." Daniel returned to Seattle promising to visit again, and this time Zara believed him. She had her brother back, if not living close, then at least restored to her life. Another piece of her heart that had been missing clicked back into place. The ranch continued to prosper through the following years. They weathered harsh winters and dry summers, disease outbreaks and market fluctuations, but they faced every challenge together. Isaac's faith in Zara's partnership proved well-founded, as she had a head for numbers and managed their finances with skill that surprised even her. The ranch became one of the most successful in the region, known for quality cattle and honest dealings. As their children grew, they transformed the house to accommodate the expanding family. Isaac and Tom added rooms and expanded the second floor, creating space for everyone. The house filled with noise and laughter, with the chaos of children and the warmth of a family deeply rooted in love. In 1910, James turned 11 and announced he wanted to be a rancher like his father. Isaac beamed with pride and began teaching his son the deeper skills of land management and animal husbandry. Caroline declared she wanted to be a veterinarian, a bold ambition for a girl, but neither Isaac nor Zara discouraged her. They had built their life on unlikely dreams and refused to limit their daughter's aspirations. Tom passed peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1912, at the age of 73. They buried him on a hilltop overlooking the ranch, and Isaac carved a headstone that read, "Thomas Granger, friend and family." The loss hit all of them hard, but especially Isaac, who had worked beside Tom for nearly 15 years. For months after, Zara would find her husband standing at Tom's grave at sunset, just talking to the old cowboy about the ranch and the children. Life continued in its bittersweet way, joy and sorrow woven together like threads in cloth. More children came, another daughter and then one final son, until the Thornton household bustled with 6 children ranging from infants to teenagers. The house was never quiet, never still, always full of energy and love and the controlled chaos of a large family. In the summer of 1915, Isaac and Zara celebrated their 17th wedding anniversary with a party that drew neighbors from miles around. Zara stood on their porch watching the celebration, her eyes finding Isaac across the yard where he talked with other ranchers, James beside him looking more like his father every day. Caroline was teaching the younger children to dance while the musicians played. Their middle sons raced around with other children in wild games. The baby, not quite a baby anymore at 3, clung to Zara's skirt. Mrs. Henderson, now elderly but still sharp, came to stand beside Zara. "You have built something remarkable here," the older woman said. "I remember when Isaac first came to town, this lonely young man determined to make something of himself. And then you arrived, so frightened you could barely function. Look at you both now." Zara smiled, her eyes never leaving Isaac. "He waited for me. Until I could look at him, until I could trust, until I could love. He just waited with infinite patience until I was ready." "That is what real love does," Mrs. Henderson said softly. "It gives people the space to become who they are meant to be." As if sensing her gaze, Isaac looked up and met Zara's eyes across the crowded yard. Even after 17 years, that eye contact still sent warmth through her chest. He smiled and mouthed, "I love you," across the distance. She smiled back, mouthing the same words, and felt the unbreakable bond between them like a physical thing. The party continued until well after dark, neighbors reluctant to leave the warmth and joy of the Thornton home. When the last guests finally departed, Isaac and Zara stood together in the front room surveying the cheerful wreckage of the celebration. "We should probably clean this," Zara said without enthusiasm. "It can wait until morning." Isaac pulled her into his arms. "Dance with me." "There is no music. We will make our own." So they swayed together in the lamplight, humming softly, while their children slept upstairs and the ranch settled into peaceful darkness around them. Zara rested her head against Isaac's chest, listening to his heartbeat, and thought about how far they had come from that awkward meeting on a train platform 17 years ago. "What are you thinking?" Isaac murmured against her hair. "That I am grateful, for everything. For you waiting for this life, for our family. I never imagined I could be this happy. Neither did I." Isaac kissed the top of her head. "You were the best gamble I ever took, Zara Thornton." "You were not a gamble at all," she replied, tilting her head back to meet his eyes. "You were a sure thing from the moment you let me not look at you without making me feel ashamed of my fear." They stood holding each other as the lamps burned low. Two people who had found each other across impossible distance and built something strong enough to weather any storm. Outside, Wyoming spread vast and beautiful under a canopy of stars, the land they had claimed and made their own through hard work and stubborn love. The years that followed brought their own joys and sorrows, as years always do. James took over more of the ranch operations as Isaac aged, proving himself a worthy successor. Caroline defied convention and managed to study veterinary medicine through correspondence courses and apprenticeship with the doctor in Cheyenne, eventually becoming the region's first female veterinarian. Their other children forged their own paths, some staying near the ranch and others venturing out into the wider world. But through everything, Isaac and Zara remained the steady center, their love the foundation upon which everything else was built. They grew old together with grace, their faces weathering like the land they loved, their hands gnarled with work, but still seeking each other in the darkness. In the spring of 1925, they celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary surrounded by children and grandchildren, the ranch house overflowing with family. Isaac was 55 now, his hair gone silver but his eyes still warm and kind. Zara was 49, still strong and capable, still meeting her husband's gaze with the directness that had taken her so long to learn. That evening, after the celebration wound down and the family scattered to their various homes and rooms, Isaac and Zara climbed to their favorite spot on the hilltop where Tom was buried. From there, they could see the entire ranch spread below them, house and barns and pastures, all of it built by their joint effort over nearly 3 decades. "I have been thinking," Isaac said, his arm around Zara's shoulders, "about that day you finally looked at me, down by the creek." "I think about it often," Zara admitted. "It was the day my life truly began. I was so afraid that day, afraid you would never trust me, never see me, never want this life. And then you looked up and I saw everything in your eyes, all the fear and hope and beginning of love, and I knew we would be all right, more than all right." Zara leaned into him, fitting against his side like she had been made to be there. "We have been magnificent." Isaac laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet evening. "Magnificent, I like that. Zara Thornton, we have been absolutely magnificent." They stood watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the same sky that had witnessed their uncertain beginning and now blessed their enduring love. Below them, lights began appearing in the ranch house windows as their family settled in for the evening. Smoke rose from the chimney. Cattle lowed peacefully in distant pastures. Everything was as it should be. "No regrets?" Isaac asked, as he had asked so many times over the years. "Not a single one," Zara replied, as she always did, and lifted her face to kiss him in the fading light. They were a mail-order bride who could not look him in the eyes and a cowboy who waited until she could. And together, they had built something more beautiful than either could have imagined. Their love story was not written in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in small kindnesses and patient understanding, in hard work shared and gentle words spoken in darkness, in the decision to build rather than give up when things got difficult. It was a love story written in the language of the West, simple and honest and enduring, and it would echo through generations of the family they created, a testament to the power of waiting for someone to be ready, of seeing worth in another when they cannot see it themselves, of building a life one day and one choice at a time. As full darkness fell, Isaac and Zara walked back down the hill hand in hand, their steps sure on the familiar path, heading toward the warm lights of home where their family waited. Behind them, the stars emerged one by one across the vast Wyoming sky, bearing witness to a love that had started in fear and grown into something unshakable, something that would outlast them both and live on in the children and grandchildren, and the very land itself. It was, they both agreed in the quiet of their room that night, a good life, better than good. It was everything either of them had ever wanted, wrapped up in the simple miracle of finding the right person at exactly the right time, even when that time required patience and trust, and the courage to finally look someone in the eyes and choose to stay.